All right, what do we got? We got 101. Shall we start the festivities? I want to say to everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us here on Every Other Wednesday, where we meet every other Wednesday to talk about culture issues. And normally there are an esteemed panelist, but they couldn't make it.
Or a guest.
But none of them could make it, and only Michael and I are here.
But we have Sunjay, we have to tell them. So I'm Michael Kerr, everyone. Welcome, coming to you from Canmore, Alberta in the Canadian Rockies. This is my charming co-host for this week, Sunjay Nath, as you all know. So we have a funny story. Jeff was with us like literally 3 minutes ago. And then all of a sudden he started doing this, started counting.
And we made jokes about long division and smelling rubber burning.
And then he looked up with this horrified look. What he was counting was time zone changes. And he realized he was due on another presentation at exactly this time. So he kind of had to bail on us, but understandably so. So we will miss Jeff Tobe. And of course, we're missing the lovely and talented Richard Haddon, who's again, whereabouts unknown. I don't know where he is.
The problem with him is the jerk is working. Like, I mean, that's just ridiculous. All those Americans, like actually interacting and stuff. And by the way, I'm Sunjay, and I'm based out of Oakville, Ontario, near Toronto, and wanted to say to everyone, welcome. Typically what we do is we have a theme, either a guest and talk about their expertise, or we pick a particular kind of problem to focus on, or an issue of sorts. But today we're doing more of a potpourri, and in kind of expanding on an idea that we've done in the past, which is this idea of, we call it the Every Other Wednesday think tank. So what we're going to be doing is looking to the chat box, and ideas and issues that people have, we will kind of address and give our comments on it. But as well, we want to hear from the chat box. We're going to make this more of an interactive session. I hope that sounds like an okay plan, because there isn't another plan. So
we don't have another plan.
No, it's we're burning the boats. You know that expression?
Burning the boats?
Yeah,
I do.
Okay, there you go. So for those who don't, it was apparently someone going to conquer some village, and they were grotesquely outnumbered as they came in on their ships. And so the captain gave the instructions to his mates. He said, burn the boats. So the idea of being all committed, and you can't retreat and run back. So we are think tanking every other Wednesday. If you have an idea of a question or a particular problem or an issue that you're dealing with regards to culture within your organization or your friend's organization, in case your boss is on the call, feel free to share it with us, and we will be more than happy to discuss it. With that said, just kind of ramble on a few things here. The world's changing, and it continues to change, because we are hardcore, deeply defined into the fourth wave. What the heck does that mean? What do you think it means? Does it mean anything different to you, Michael?
Well, I'm tempted to just say it feels like more of the same. I know people are getting burned out, exhausted, frustrated, stressed. And certainly, I think it varies depending on where you are, obviously, geographically, right? Whether people are even calling it the fourth wave or not. But again, I think it just speaks to the need for a lot of the stuff we've been talking about since the start of the pandemic, right? The need for us as leaders to be flexible like never before, to be agile, to roll with the punches, to be able to adapt quickly, to connect with our employees, to be extra compassionate, to up the empathy through the roof, to be uber intentional about our communication, and make sure that we are doubling down on the importance of our culture. Because as we go back into a fourth wave, however serious that looks in different places, again, we're going to have to go back to the fundamentals and focusing on what is really important.
I want to echo that too. I mean, yeah, they're labeling it the fourth wave or the third wave or the second wave, but it hasn't changed really much. And the sad reality is, if we don't have COVID, there's going to be something equivalent. And what I mean by equivalent is not another pandemic, but there's going to be some sort of a challenge that we're faced with. And it could be political, and it could be physical, and it could be terrorist related, and it could be employee shortages, and it could be whatever it is. But there's always some reason that your hair is on fire. And as a result, I mean, the core philosophy of what we do here, that says that when your hair is on fire, and it will be, I guarantee you at some point it will be on fire, provided you have here. Very nice, Michael. You do that suspiciously well. When it is on fire, you're going to be served better, and your organization is going to be more adaptable and more flexible and more able to come through it with success when you have a stronger culture. I mean, that's the core belief of what we have here. And then the idea of how you get that stronger culture and what it means to have a stronger culture is going to vary from organization to organization and from time period to time period. Because if an organization is going through extreme growth, the culture is very different than if it is a very stable bureaucratic organization. And not to say one is better or worse or right or wrong, but given where they are in time, there is a better fit.
And we know this from a ton of research, right, Sunjay, that strong cultures tend to survive these things. They're more resilient. They're more resilient in the face of change. But also, just to your point, I was thinking about how, forget about external world events happening, like you meant, politics, and any number of other issues like a pandemic. Just on the competitive front within your specific industry, are you always looking ahead? This is why, we talk a lot on this panel about the need to be innovative and creative and forward thinking and looking towards the future. Are you, are you Uber proofing yourself if you were in the taxi business? Are you Netflixing proof yourself if you're in the blockbuster business? In other words, what disruptive force within your industry could be lurking out there that is going to totally turn your industry, your workplace upside down? And I should probably fix my hair.
And as you're doing that, I want to point out that, so Janice made this comment, and so I'm going to give our public service announcement again. When you make comments, please change the default so it doesn't only say hosts and panelists, but it says to everyone, because I think everyone should enjoy in the comment that Janice made. I'm going to read it. It says, Michael looks like the mayor in Whoville. So, yes, makes you wonder. Because let me ask you this: have you ever seen Michael and the mayor of Whoville at the same time? I'm just saying.
I'm very good point. I'm looking for a comb or a brush, which usually I have in my pile here.
What? Oh, you're looking for.
There it is. There it is. Look at that. I'm safe. I'm safe. Talk amongst yourselves.
So again, I'm going to encourage people. What is your biggest challenge right now? If we are going to going through this fourth wave, what is the biggest challenge right now that you face within your organization, as a group, as the organization itself, or as an individual in doing what you do for that particular organization? And with that said, I'm going to actually, I'm going to keep the conversation going, which I'm going to ask you this, Michael, what are, again, we've talked generically, and we focus from week to week on specific strategies, but at a high level, at a 50,000 view level, what are the things that organizations should be doing right now? Like during these times, during these challenging, these tumultuous, these ever-changing times?
Well, I'm going to circle back to what I always do as a starting point, and that's being extra intentional about your communication, which means investing the time, taking the time to seriously check in with your employees. You need to, like never before, keep a pulse on what your employees are thinking, what they're feeling. You need to have regular touch points, and you need to make this a priority, checking in with your employees, making sure you're having good conversations. Yes, it takes time to do that, but it is worth the time. You need to do this like never before. I think going back to some very simple things that we can do too, like a weekly feedback poll or survey where you just every week you check in with your employees and you ask them a specific question about a different issue related to work. And this can be fun too, right? So you weave in a few fun questions just to up the fun factor in your workplace, but checking in with your employees is absolutely critical. You can't think about, sometimes when we're in a crisis mode or we're dealing with a lot of change, we get into this mindset where we think, okay, yeah, we have to communicate, but we have to push out all this communication. We got to make sure we're communicating at our employees. And what I want to suggest is the more you can communicate with your employees and make sure it's a two-way conversation and that they feel like they have a voice and that they're being heard and their concerns are being heard, the better everyone will feel.
And that's said in a different way. It's just one way versus two-way communication. You're not speaking out at people. You're not just a megaphone yelling, but it's actually an ongoing back and forth. It reminds me, I just was my 11-year-old. This is a crazy week. I was telling both you and Jeff earlier in the call before we kind of went public here that I am like total Uber driver this week. I have my boys in like 4 or 5 different activities this week between camps and Taekwondo lessons and swimming and tutoring. It's nuts. And I'm just like, my schedule is boom, 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 boom. Anyway, so swimming lessons, my middle son, who's 11 years old, he came back and he was all sore and he's like, oh, Dad, give me a massage. So I was kind of giving him a little bit of a massage. And he said to me, he goes, oh yeah, that feels good. Or, oh, that's too hard. And it kind of reminded me that when I was like in high school, I did a workshop. I was an attendee in a workshop on massage giving. And so one of the things that they said was, and this, I don't know why it stuck with me all these years later, but they said one of the most important things about massaging is it's this whole notion of feedback. So if someone's doing something and it's too hard, you need to say, ouch, it's too hard. And not just sit there going, this is supposed to feel good.
Right.
Or on the flip side, if it's not hard enough, hey, can you go a little, there's a knot there, work it in. And so it's no different. It's no different. Rather than assume we know the pressure points, we can go in with a plan, and you should have an idea of going, hey, as an organization, this is what I think is most important to my people. But at the same time, you need to be having that feedback, kind of going, hey, talk to me. And that's how you get that. It's a check-in. And the check-in is not, I'm going to tell you what you're thinking. The check-in is, here's the plan. What are your thoughts? And then you take that feedback honestly, and then you actually, most importantly, is you act on it. Yeah. And sometimes acting on it means not now, and we're going to back burner it. And other times it means, all right, we got to do a 180. Let's change the game.
Right. Yeah, I love that, Sunjay. How's the pressure? How's the pressure? And I love, Rhonda, you quoted me, I think, because I say this all the time. There's a difference between checking in with somebody and checking up on somebody. And if you have small children like Sunjay at home, there's a difference between those two things. So make sure you're genuinely checking in. One of my favorite questions that I think leaders need to ask, and all of us are leaders, right? So asking our teammates this question as well is just, hey, what does support look like for you? Because everyone, especially during challenging times like this, has a different definition. Some people say, you know what, I'm good, I know what I'm doing, just leave me alone, I got this. And other people are going to need more support. So how do you define support? What does support look like for you? And my other favorite question is there anything I could start doing or anything I should stop doing that would make this whole situation easier for you? So coming in armed with a couple of specific questions, I think can really help. We've got, yes, and Margarita, the biggest challenge is tolerating the anti-vaxxers. Oh, yes, don't get me started on that. That would take us down a rabbit hole, I believe, if we went down that road. But yeah, it's
But actually, hold on a second. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, right? Because you make this great divide. And Jeff was actually specifically saying right before the call, he wanted to bring this idea and have a little discussion around it, which is more and more places and organizations and shops are requiring vaccinations, or you want to shop here, or you want to work here, or whatever. And then you get into this whole, are you stepping on people's rights? Are you not? And I heard something that was good food for thought. And I'm not trying to actually, I'm purposely not picking a side, but it was good food for thought. It was actually I was listening to a sports radio something. And the guy was saying, in the 80s, he went with his grandpa to Italy, flew over on a plane to Italy with his grandpa. And his grandfather was a chain smoker, and he smoked and smoked and smoked. And all of a sudden, the next time they were going to Italy, his grandfather wasn't allowed to smoke. And he was up in arms going, oh my goodness, this is a violation of my rights. How dare you? This is my freedom. It's my choice, blah, blah, blah. And the argument back then was, yes, you have the right, but there's a safety concern for the people around you. So again, it depends. I'm not trying to pick a side of the fence, but it's not only the right of the individual, but there is also, if you're going to play in the sandbox we call a society, then there are certain rules we're going to agree to. And if you have leprosy, you can't go around licking people. Sorry, just it's we agree to. And I mean,
pull that example out from
that example. But I hope the point is taken.
Yeah, and I've made that same point, Sunjay, online many times.
But licking and leprosy?
Yeah, no, not the leprosy licking point, but how yes, we have all sorts of wonderful freedoms in Canada and the United States and in many, many countries. You have the right to smoke, like you said, but you do not have the right to smoke in most places with children in your car, in a restaurant, in an office building, because of the harm it can bring to other people. We all have the right to enjoy a refreshing alcoholic beverage. You do not have the right to get behind the wheel of a car after 12 of those refreshing alcoholic beverages because of the harm you might bring to other people. And that's the line that I think we have to keep in mind as we're having this discussion.
Okay, and we have a whole bunch of stuff in the chat box we'll now get to, but first I want to make one last smart ass remark and then we'll move on. A very good friend of mine was a public health nurse. I went to school with him, and he would eventually, when he right out of university, he got into a job about anti-smoking and such. And so when he would go give presentations, because this is late 90s, so if you go back then, it was this idea of, you had smoking sections in restaurants. Remember that? Good old days. You go to a donut shop and you bite into the donut, you could taste the smoke in it. It was fantastic. And he used to say, having a smoking section in a restaurant is like having a peeing section in a pool. So I think it's a great line. All right. What do you see?
Carissa is mentioning their biggest challenge. Recently merged together, 3 credit unions have not been able to get together in person to meet one another. Harder to build personal relationships, right? And of course, everybody's in this boat. I'm hearing a lot too from people, Sunjay, of people wrestling with, I think we have a mystery guest joining us. It looks like Richard Haddon. What's going on? People struggling with onboarding new employees too, right? Imagine you got hired at the start of the pandemic and you haven't met any of your colleagues yet. You're just virtual. So again, I think that goes back to making sure people are being extra intentional, and not just with their communication. I think David Guthrow hits on this nicely. How do you build this sense of community virtually? How do you create some joyful experiences? So again, doubling down, making sure you are building in some social time virtually, doing things, some of the ideas we've talked about, random coffee dates, random meeting dates, where you randomly draw names from a hat and 4 people jump on a Zoom call and get to meet each other from different departments or different office locations, where you build in social time before or after your regular meetings. So people have that water cooler time that we don't have now, right? When, you think about it, the old days, when you go into a meeting room, you'd have those 10 minutes before where you're talking about all sorts of different stuff. We have to make sure we're doing that in the virtual world as well, I think. So again, look for those fun social opportunities as much as you can and build them in, weave them into your work week.
I'd like to point out, and I've made this point in past weeks, is if we draw an analogy to each home being like a satellite office, then not a lot has changed. What I'm saying is, if you work for the Toronto office and there's an LA office and you keep liaising with someone from LA, and whether it's a phone call, and now because of technology, we do a lot more Zooms. So we even have that more face stuff. And I would say there's been a heck of a lot more face stuff in the last 2 years since the pandemic than there was prior to that. People would pick up the phone or you text or whatever. And then what happens is, when you have that quarterly meeting or that annual convention or conference, you finally connect with that person and you put a name to the face, and you you go have a coffee together, you go to the bar or whatever it is, and you connect at a level that you hadn't been able to. But prior to that, you still had a relationship. You still got to meet with this person. You still got to interact with this person. You still got to work with this person. And it's just, there's more of that going on now, because eventually we are going to meet again. We are too social as a species to not meet again. For people that think that, we're never meeting together and we can do this by Zoom, so we'll never meet again. I don't buy that premise for a second. People need to smell the new car smell at the auto show. They do. People,
I just got a new car. It still has that new car smell.
There you go. By the way, you can actually buy a spray that actually is like that. I have a buddy
I'm actually wearing it now, Sunjay.
And I thought so. It smells good on you.
Yeah.
But people need that. They need whether it's they're going to pick up, or they're going to physically, tactically touch something, or push buttons on the computer, or whatever it is, or laugh and give the hugs. We need that, and we will get there. But in the meantime, we need to resort to appreciating that every house if you're working from home, is like a satellite office. And more people are kind of filtering back. I was just chatting with a neighbor, and he said he's going back next week, and he's in the government, and so that's the first time in whatever 2 years ish that he's going back. And so more and more we're getting that, but we're going to have more of these satellite offices, and so we just we need to appreciate that.
I wonder what people think of. We've got to get to some of these comments in the chat box, but you made me think of this transition time when people are starting to go.
I'm sorry for making you think.
Yeah, thank you. When people are going back to the office, I know a few of my clients are, and they're just trying, and we got to try stuff, right? When you're in this kind of space, just try things, right? Even if they sound weird, you don't know how they're going to work. You don't know until you do them. So some of my clients are trying these different color-coded badge identifier kind of systems for the people that are going back to the office, so that people can express their own level of comfort into how much they interact with one another. And there are pros and cons to that approach, right? But it's just something so that people feel they have a little bit of control. So people that are still very, very nervous about interacting too closely with people. No, I don't want to hug you yet, Sunjay. I don't want to lick your face yet. You wear a badge that says, I want to say hi, but from a safe distance, right?
Yeah, and Richard was just telling us there's a big conference for speakers at the NSA, the National Speakers Association, and they actually had a system. And he said there was actually badges, one that says hug me.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't remember what it was, but
one was it's complicated.
Yeah, it's complicated. Yeah, that was my favorite one. So one said hug me, one said, take a hike, and one says it's complicated. So
complicated. Sounds like a relationship thing, right?
Exactly. It's a red, yellow, and green system.
Yes.
All right. Yes. What else we got here in the chat box?
Where were you? Stuart, it's good to see you. Thank you for your comments. There is a lot of anger and frustration out there.
What province are you in? There have been a number of mergers pending. No.
That's David Guthrow.
Yeah, is asking Carissa. Where is Carissa? Yeah, we're way behind, so she may have answered that. Yeah.
Oh, you guys are so far ahead of us. Sunjay and I have just been babbling away.
We're so far behind. We think we're in first. That's how far behind we are.
Oh, Rhonda, you read my. Is that me? You read my book, not Sunjay's book.
Who would read that? You know what? I just got to tell you, I just finished a 365-page book, and when you think about it, that's a lot of coloring.
That is.
Sorry, thank you, Emo Phillips.
Yes, and David touched on a point that we talk about a lot too, right? And I know Lisa Belanger, Dr. Lisa Belanger, who we had a month ago, who was so brilliant. She talked about the importance of psychological safety, right? And that has never been more important than now. Starting with that message, we see it more than we ever have before, I think, that it's okay to not be okay. And we need to make sure people understand that we've created that environment for people to speak up and ask for help and ask for support. And our leaders in our organizations need to model that behavior. So they need to speak up and be public about that and create that safe environment for people to have really good conversations.
Yeah. I'm just looking here and people are commenting. Yeah, again, we were behind. By the way, I do want to blame Jeff because he bailed on us last minute. He was supposed to be doing the chat box, so
he was.
Yeah, so
it's all Jeff's fault, really.
Yeah, totally is.
As most of the every other Wednesday glitches
in fact, actually, I think the whole COVID-19 thing might be Jeff's fault as well. Not sure.
Yes, and thank you, Margarita. It is a social responsibility, and I can tell by your all caps that you really mean that. Plus 5 exclamation marks. So thank you. Let's see. Do we have some good questions here? Yeah. Sana, HVAC company. No one can work from home. Some of you have been mentioning about hiring too, right? We know there's so many challenges with hiring people.
Yeah. Okay, Sana, you're talking about fish philosophy. So when we get into things like that, like fish philosophy, or it doesn't matter what it is. What's more important is that there's a buy-in, and sometimes you get more buy-in when it comes from the ground, and other times you get the buy-in because people it's made by a decision or a group that people respect or whatever. But I'm a huge believer of that philosophy, not specifically fish, not that I have anything wrong with fish. I love it. I think that when you have a template, a brand, brand is probably the best word. That brand is what we're calling culture, is how do you create an exciting workplace so that, again, people don't have to go to work, but they get to go to work. And you're right, though, when you get into something like you're saying your HVAC company, you have, because you physically need to be there, and until you have robots that can do that, and people have joysticks at home and they're playing with their controllers, you physically need to be in the space, which means that with that comes a whole new different set of challenges. So you're not going to have this idea of, oh, people don't have the interaction. Well, they do, but now you have these safety concerns, or you have I just heard on the radio yesterday or today about in Ontario how just about every claim that's been brought to the ministry of, I don't even know which ministry it is, that says, hey, they're forcing me to go back to work and I don't feel safe going back to work because of COVID. Every single one of them has been rejected so far. And because it doesn't meet the whatever criteria and
Right.
whatever it is. So the point being, there are people who are feeling unsafe, and you start running, you go, the grass is always greener. You look at that organization and go, oh, well, they're meeting, so they have the physical connections and they can hug each other, and that's great. And then the other people kind of going, wait a minute, because they're meeting, chances of spread are higher. They should be getting danger pay, and this is not fair to them. And you run this constant conundrum of, what is the right thing to do? And you look at it across the cities, across the provinces, the states, how one governor or one premier says, do this. And some people go, what a brilliant decision. And everyone else going, you're an idiot. Why are you doing it that way? And going back to what you were saying earlier, Michael, it's sometimes you just kind of got to do it and then look for the feedback and change course accordingly.
Yeah, and to Sana's point too, I'm hearing that from everybody. It seems like, I think just given what we're going through, right? People are on a shorter fuse these days, right? So you're reading a lot of stories of upset customers, frustrated customers. And I think the more we recognize that, it's going to help us, the more we anticipate that. I would encourage anybody, if you're dealing with extra frustrated customers, high maintenance customers, challenging customers, to think about that customer service concept of what can you do to anticipate their needs ahead of time, right? The more you can anticipate those needs. And so getting your team to share those questions they're getting, the frustrations, so that over time you can be far more proactive to make sure you're dealing with those up front, you're anticipating those so you don't have as much stress from them. I know one simple idea, I know I've talked about here before for people that are dealing with frustrated customers, is a couple of my clients do a customer from hell award program, where at the end of every week or the end of every month, whatever time frame makes sense for you, whoever had to deal with the most rude, obnoxious, high maintenance, jerky kind of customer gets a small reward. And I've seen examples where that has, just even that simple idea has made it fun enough that, it doesn't make all the challenges go away, but it's a fun way to at least alleviate some of the stress and make it a little more fun for folks.
I'm looking at Shannon McBride's comment at 117. I'm challenged to keep my team engaged. I try to check in weekly and ask for their feedback and get crickets. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause for a second and say right now in the chat box for people that are listening and who want to play, if you had to think of your current significant other or a previous one, and if you were comparing them and you had to pick an animal that most looked like them, what would it be? Fire it off in the chat box. What does your current significant other, what animal does he or she most resemble to you? And don't worry, we will not tell them. Okay, so what I was trying to do here is trying to make a point, Shannon, and the point was, if you ask people to give feedback, often you'll get crickets. But when you can be more specific and try to make it more fun and silly, you're more likely to get the feedback. So rather than say, tell me what's working and what's not working, how can you make it more specific to say, hey, on a scale of 1, well, you using Michael Kerr's sense of humor, on a scale of 9 to 10, where would you rank this? When you give people, you force them to participate willingly. I give you an example. As a speaker, a lot of times with the wrong audience, you go, I need a volunteer, you will get crickets. It's like pulling teeth, no one will ever volunteer. But if you phrase it this way, I say something like this, and I've done this where I go, okay, I need a volunteer, and this volunteer will pick themselves. I need the volunteer, their birthday is in March, and they have an older sister. And you'll be surprised how people will put up their hands, because they're like, oh, well, it must be me. And so in a sense, what you've done is you've given them more reason to participate, because it almost makes them sound special. I don't know if that makes sense, but the idea of don't ask generically for feedback, but be more specific and creative, and you're more likely to get more sound bites. And here's the other thing too, is once people start playing, then you get the domino effect. And then one person talks, another person talks, and then you actually can have a discussion.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of asking kind of sideways kind of questions to get at an issue, right? And same thing. I've done workshops with groups, and if I ask them, hey, how's your culture doing? And nobody crickets. But if I say, hey, if you could describe your workplace environment using the name of a TV show or movie, what would it be? Then all of a sudden people say things like, oh, ours is The Young and the Restless. Oh, The Young and the Restless. Why? Because we're hiring too many young people and everybody's restless these days, right? And then all of a sudden this whole conversation unfolds, but couldn't get anything, right? Crickets, just asking a more straightforward question. So that, it's a good technique to use sometimes.
Yep. As long as you can manipulate people, it works. That's the
manipulate.
Oh, wait,
manipulating people.
Oh, no, I know, but again, it goes to what we talk about constantly here. It's not about it. How do you make it fun? How do you make it engaging? How do you make people get to and not have to? And if you go, give me feedback, I go, okay, it's like, it's annoying, it's frustrating. But when you ask me a question, I feel compelled to answer, because I want to show that I'm fun or clever or I have a good answer. Like what Michael said there, and I hate to say this publicly, but it's quite brilliant. And that is, when you have something like, give me a TV show, or, give me the name of a movie, there's so much creativity that can go with there, and you're going to get laughs that come from within the group, and that laughter bonds them together, virtually or in person. So it actually works on a bunch of levels. Yeah.
And it makes people, again, it's about creating that comfort zone, so more and more people feel comfortable to speak up and express their feelings. And thank you. I think it was Deanna. Thank you for that, for suggesting that, helping our employees, helping our teammates with decompressing activities, equipping them with the proper tools to manage their stress, to be more resilient, has never been more important. And boy, I'm certainly seeing that. Well, I think it's been a trend for the last, frankly, 10 years, but I think especially now it has sped up in terms of companies investing in stress management training for their employees, in investing in positive mental health practices like never before. And we need it.
I mean, people it took a while to realize, because it used to be go to work, do your work at work, and then do your home at home. And it, never shall the two combine. And now they realize, wait a minute, if you're stressed at home, you're a weaker employee. And when you have that full body experience, and when you have good relationships, and you're physically active, and you're a good spouse or parent or connector or neighbor, then you produce more. So taking a genuine interest in the well-being, the full well-being of the individual in every aspect, actually is a smart business move. Yep. It used to be, hold on, why would I pay for their gym membership? It's wasted money. No, because we now realize that there's absenteeism decreases significantly if the person's healthy enough to make it there. And so to pay that is a small fee, then, oh, we lost that employee. Now we have to bring on someone else, and we got to train them. And we're going to, it's a couple $100 for the gym membership, but it's thousands of dollars to train someone to replace that person because they weren't healthy enough to be here. Yeah. And on top of all that, it's the right freaking thing to do.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, because I always circle back to that. Let's just remember it's also the right thing to do to build a humane, positive workplace where we aren't killing people. I've got a book in my bookshelf right behind me here somewhere called Dying for a Paycheck that I know I've referenced on here before that makes the case that people are dying because of their workplace culture. So maybe we do need to take a serious look at our culture like never before.
All right, I have a comment here from Connie. Let me get your thoughts here on this, Mr. Kerr. It says, we have a small team of 8 staff. At least 2 of them won't come up live on the video. They only show their picture. I hate that. How do you want to be close to them? Any strategies, ideas on how to engage those folks, or not even engage them, because they could be very engaged, but how do we get them to show their mugs?
So they're just not showing their faces on virtual meetings. Is that it? Right. Yeah. And on that point, by the way, I do think in certain situations, people are burning out on Zoom in some situations, right? And we need to ask our employees and each other, what is your favorite preferred means of communication, right? Text, phone. Would you like to just pick up a phone for this call rather than Zoom? Because maybe you're tired and yes, please, let's just talk on the old-fashioned phone thing. That would be awesome. But when it is important to see everyone's face, there are times I think when yeah, you should say, no, we need to see everyone's face. My first tip would be to talk to those employees offline. You don't want to do that in front of everyone and make them feel uncomfortable and awkward, and just ask them and express your reasons why you feel it's important, why you want everybody to be able to see each other's face, that it's important that we connect as a team, that when we're not seeing each other in person, this is the next best thing. We want to see your breathing, beautiful face. So is there something I need to know about that would help me understand why you don't want to show your face, but just explain your rationale for why you think it's important, and ask why they're not showing their face as a starting point. And then too, I think, Sunjay, just again, going back to the making it fun aspect, right? If you can do some fun things where people have to be on camera to engage them. So whether it's voting with different colored things, right? Like hold up a green object if you're for this, a red if you're against this, a yellow if you're kinda, but you need more information, or do a fun game. I suggested this a little while ago in my newsletter where everybody's on camera. It works really well with small teams, especially. Everybody shuts off their camera for just 15 seconds. They have to change one thing about their appearance, and then everybody comes back on the cameras, and then you start with Sunjay, and everybody has to quickly guess, okay, Sunjay's changed one thing about his appearance. What is it? Yeah, there you go. And so having some fun engagement stuff like that can sometimes draw them out as well.
Laura's comment here at 123, she's saying, I think that the pandemic has become harder on the organizations that did not have a good or healthy culture before the situation. And again, that's the whole premise of what we wholeheartedly 100% totally agree. Yeah. It's easier to navigate. It doesn't mean it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. It's not a walk in the park. It's easier. If you have a healthy connection, if you have trust and good communication within management and upper management, lower management and side management and frontline employees and maintenance and marketing and HR and R&D and everyone, it's just easier to navigate. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Rhonda makes a smart ass comment. I think we should kick her from the call. Yes, Sunjay has a book. Yeah, I wish I had the power. All right, here we go. I saw a video of young children as they entered their classroom indicate to the teacher what kind of greeting they want from her. They can ask for a hug, a high five, a bump, or no touching. There was a chart on the wall, and they could point to it.
I know that video. That's an awesome video. Isn't that great? Like, what a creative teacher to do that. I just love those videos.
Absolutely. And the other thing that's nice about it too is sometimes when you make, I don't like the word rule, but I'm going to say rule. When you make a rule like that, it makes it easier for people to express themselves because they don't actually have to go out on a limb. I had a situation where I was the leader of these staff members, and I was trying to get feedback. And I initially recognized every time I asked them for feedback, they would kind of smile and say something nice that was like 2 words long, and that was it. And then we kind of created the whole, the shit sandwich thing, where you have to say something good and then something critically.
Dollar in the curse jar for Sunjay.
Oh, damn it. Then you had to say something constructive feedback and then something good again. And just by making that rule that they were obliged to say something that was a way of improving, then people were more likely to buy into it. So again, just giving that formula, that's a better word. Instead of saying a rule, it's a formula that said, check the box here, check the box here, check the box here. And it helps by providing that structure.
A framework, a guideline. Yes.
Uh,
I like that, Leona. Yes, your team using a creative turn on this, changing your background to something that resonates with people at that chosen theme. Very cool. Yeah, there's so much creative stuff you can do with this, right? Hey, speaking of the greeting, the teacher greeting the children, this is a fun contest people should do. Once we're transitioning back to real people, in-person people, hold a contest in your workplace to who, because I think it's going to be a long time, even when we're past this, before a lot of people are going to want to shake hands again. I mean, that may go the way of the dodo bird. And for you, I'll just speak personally, for years, as a busy speaker traveling on planes, when it's flu season, I don't shake people's hands. I don't think I'm a particular gerbophobe or anything, but you know, I'm talking to 1,000 people and I'm sorry, I don't. So I brought the old elbow up for years now, but why don't we create a fun contest for people to come up with the most creative way of, replacing the handshake with something kind of silly, goofy, funny that would fit your particular business or brand.
And when I find myself, it's just my nature. When I'm asked the same question over and over again, or I find myself in a similar situation repeatedly, I always come up with some smart ass kind of response. And to that point, what I've been using lately is when I meet someone, I go, I don't know what we're supposed to do anymore. Do we bow? Do we hug? Do we kiss? Do we lick? I don't know. And that's my way of recognizing that, to say, look, I know everyone's at a different level. And I'm one of these people that I'm more on the I'll play to your level. I don't mind shaking people's hands in flu season, whereas some people do. And that there's nothing right or wrong with it. It's just, that's how it is. In fact, I just signed up my kid, my eldest son, earlier this week for Taekwondo for the year or whatever. And the gentleman that was signing him up, just at the end of it, he said, fantastic, we did all the paper. And he goes, can I shake your hand? And I actually even said out loud, I said, isn't that crazy? We're actually at that point where, that's where it is. And I can guarantee you at some point, someone's going to be offended. Oh, he asked me if I could shake my hand. And well, I felt pressure because if I said no, then he would look at me weird. And the reality is this, is if people want to complain, they're going to find a reason to complain. And when people are open-minded and they're looking for a solution, it doesn't matter what happens, they're going to work together and they're going to come up with a solution.
Yeah.
And that's what culture is.
A simple weasel out for that, Sunjay, is if you're not comfortable shaking someone's hand, is you put it on yourself and you just say, shoot your elbow up and say, you know what, I feel like I've got a tickle in my throat. I feel like I'm coming down with something. So I'm just trying to make sure I don't pass anything to anyone.
Unless of course they go, no, I don't mind. I want Michael Kerr cooties. Give me that handshake, Michael. All right, look at the time.
Look at the time.
Look at the time.
Look at the time. Right. Hey, Michelle, good to see you as always. And yeah, hey, Fred Flintstone's Overeaters Anonymous secret hand. Oh, now I have to go look that up. I'm gonna go.
That's like the Grand Poobah
on YouTube.
Yeah. It's funny, but I was just saying the other day that we don't use enough enough Flintstone references anymore. That used to be the only game in town for the longest time, but then the stupid Simpsons took them over, and then Family Guy and all
the sad world when Flintstone references.
It started from the Flintstones, so let's be honest.
Yeah. All right. I just want to read Michelle's comment here. This is very cool. I've been doing, yes, you mentioned that to me, Michelle, doing theme week background photos. It's a great idea.
Now you're just rambling. You should just read it.
Now I'm just reading it to myself.
I know, exactly. That doesn't show well on a video call, just so we're clear.
Are my lips moving?
Although people came here to watch you read. All right, as we start to wrap this up, as we wrap this up, we want to say thank you for those who gave ideas and thoughts and feedback and challenges.
And ideas, and we apologize. I know we didn't get to some questions, but we will, because we'll be back. When will we be back, Sunjay?
We will be back on Wednesday, August 8th. And if you are the believer that age is a good luck, no, September 8th. We're going back in time. On September 8th, we will be back for another 45-minute session of every other Wednesdays. 45 minutes of awesome value. Thanks from Vancouver. Thank you, Stuart. And we look forward to it. I would like to give you a theme of what that will be, but at this point, we'll be totally honest and say we have no idea.
We may or may not have a guest. I suspect we're going to have a guest. We'll let you know. As always, tell your friends, tell your boss, tell your coworkers, tell your in-laws, your pets. We love to have you here. We love your energy. We appreciate you. And please reach out if you have ideas, if you have suggestions for a theme, a topic that we haven't hit on yet, then please let us know.
Like, for example, I've been pushing for a long time that we do an entire session on Michael Kerr's hair.
Ooh. We would need more than just one session.
This is true. This is true. Excellent. Thank you, folks. Enjoy your 2 weeks. We will see you every other Wednesday.
Thank you all. Take care. Be healthy out there.
Cheers.